Shalom lekulam. Hello to all of our guests. My name is Yair Lev, and I'm in Philadelphia. I live in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I am an Israeli American citizen who lives, like I said, in the suburb with my family of Philadelphia. And I belong to several organizations, including the AIDS Coalition, Hope for Israel Alliance, and different medical organizations, including the American Jewish Medical Association. And what we do as part of some of the organizations is basically supporting Israel, supporting the democracy in Israel, and also fighting the anti-Semitism and specifically the anti-Zionism that has really eroded our society in the last 2 years and not really improving much even after the ceasefire. So those of us who live in the United States are certainly facing these issues. For those of you who are joining the first time, one of these webinars in this webinar series, the AIDS Coalition is a U.S. non-for-profit organization, and its mission is to strengthen and to preserve the democratic foundations of the state of Israel. And for more information, you're going to see pretty soon in the chat the link and other links as well. So I'd like to start. Today, it has been over 2 years, to be exact, 767 days since the start of this awful war of October 7th. And we are all so excited in the last month or so since October that all of the hostages, the live hostages, are back. And so many of our brothers and sisters who unfortunately were killed and murdered by the Hamas and the Jihad were brought to Israel as well. And of course, we cannot forget that we still have 4 brothers and sisters or brothers that are still captive in Gaza, and we're all looking to bring them back home for appropriate burial. So we are very lucky in this webinar. We have 3 amazing women and leaders from Israel who are basically joining us to express and tell how the reality has been in the last 2 years as mothers of children, of sons and daughters who have been very active in the last 2 years, including participation in the war in Gaza, and how this has been specifically for them as mothers, as Israelis, as family members, as friends, and leaders. So you're going to hear, and I'm going to introduce very briefly, and we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to introduce the three amazing women. So every time that I introduce, maybe just lift your hand in case we can be seen. So we have Ayelet Hsahahar. That's an unusual but beautiful name, Ayelet Hsahahar Saidoff. She is an attorney. She's a mother of 3. One of them is currently still serving in the Israeli Navy. And she's also the founder of Mothers of the Front Line. Shalom and welcome.
Hi, hello everyone. How are you? Good evening. Thank you for calling us.
Participating. Before you go on, I'm gonna introduce the 2 other colleagues or friends. So we have also Sarit Massachi Kobrigo. She is an Israeli-American mother of 3. And one of them is currently in the IDF. One of them is in reserves, and the other one is soon to be enlisted. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, in about a year.
In about a year. And she's basically a democracy and social activist. So thank you very much, Sarit, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having this.
And then the last person that I'd like to, last but not least, Michal Feuer. She is the mother of 4, and 3 of them who are combat soldiers. The oldest are in reserves in Gaza. And she is also an activist with Mothers of the Front Line. So welcome to you as well, Michal.
Hi. Thank you very much for having us.
It's amazing and it's really an honor to see you from so far away, thousands of miles away. So maybe before we jump into questions, and we have a substantial amount of people here, and you're welcome to add your questions as we move forward with this conversation to the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. But maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself. And before we start talking about what you do, tell us about how you have been. How are you now after these awful 2 years? And maybe just give us a little bit of background about yourself and the organization. So perhaps maybe we'll start with Ayelet Hsahahar.
Yeah. Hi to everybody. So we are existed since April 2023. the October 70th is not the reason we started. Actually, my story began at March 25, 2023, when the Minister of Defense warned that our country was facing a real danger when he go out to the national TV, when Gallant go out to the national TV and said, we are in real danger. And then Benjamin Netanyahu fired him the day after. And in that week, I just sent my son to the army. So it was a very, very difficult and complicated week for me, because I remember that moment clearly, because I was proud in my son. He's going to the army, but I was very, very worried about what's going to happen, because I realized that security in Israel become politics, and this is something will never happen in Israel. And instead of fixing the problem, the Prime Minister fired the Minister of Defense. So, and a week later, the ultra-Orthodox parties demand a new basic law that's called the Torah law, the study of Torah, and they ask not to serve in the army. So the three of that, they realize that the security of our country has become a politic. Our ultra-Orthodox citizens don't want to serve the army, and my son is there. I said enough is enough. Something's wrong is going to happen here. And I wrote a short message and sent in the WhatsApp. And after a few hours, thousands of mothers and women joined me. And 2 or 3 weeks after, we did a first protest in front of the army base, the Bakum. We come with a starless, baby starless, and we took a little grave called starless, a little grave, baby grave, symbolic to say these soldiers, this baby will never grow up in this country, because this country is going to a very, very dangerous political situation. And the media attacked us. The media so the media like to hate us, and they call us crazy mothers. And because they attacked us so much, in this day, another 15,000 mothers joined us. And now, 3 years after, we are 70,000 mothers and Israeli mothers. And the Mother on the Front Lines is a national movement. And we are act in so many different ways. We do 360 degree of actions. We have our Supreme Court case, historic Supreme Court case. We ask for equal. We ask for a fair living in this country. We want to raise our child in a country that values every life the same. And that's our battle. That's our strong. That's what we are doing in the 3 years. And that's it for the moment, I think. This movement, this is the biggest mothers movement in Israel. And we do a lot of change every day, a lot of change, because we are fearless and we don't fear of anything. We want our child to be equal in this country. We want this country to be a Democrat, Jewish country that values life the same. This is our goal mission. I think.
This is amazing. We'll hear more about Mothers on the Front Line, the amazing organization that you created. Sarit, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself. So what's your background? You're American, you're Israeli, you speak perfect Hebrew, you speak perfect English?
Yes, I was born in Israel, raised 3 to 11 years old in the US, came back to Israel, was a very proud American, and then I became a very proud Israeli. And I always was debating to stay in Israel, to go back to the US to raise my kids here, to the US, Israel is US, Israel. And I actually chose Israel. It was a chosen situation. And what happened in the last years was the first time that I was sad about what I chose. I was as if mistaken because I feel that that's what we love this country. I mean, this organization, this Moms on the Frontline organization are moms that love Israel and feel deeply we're very proud of Israel and always were proud of Israel. And all we want to do is first heal Israel and make it again a good place for our kids to become young adults. I mean, they are becoming young adults now, and they deserve a lot more of what the government is giving out for them. So we are fighting for democracy and equality, and this place needs to stay with a lot of compassion to everyone and raise our children with wisdom and responsibility. So what we're trying to have here is go back to have the good Israel with very high level Jewish values that are a little bit going away, and we're staying on guard to protect these values. So, and I have 3 kids here. One, what you actually told us that before. So,
Thank you, Sarit.
at the back.
Wow. Michal, tell us about yourself a little bit.
My story is similar to Sarit, only I grew up in the States until the age of 14 and then came back with my family. I was also born in Israel and came back at the age of 14. And I'm a single mother with 4 children. 3 of them, 2 are in their mandatory service right now, combat, a boy and a girl, twins. My older son finished his mandatory service and is now in reserve duty. And the funny thing is, he was just told now this evening that he has to go back tomorrow morning, even though he was supposed to stay home until Sunday. And I have a youngest who's still in high school. And whatever everything that Ayelet was talking about, we basically want to turn this country into a place that we can be proud of, a place that we can raise our children and grandchildren in. That's the bottom line, really. That's the bottom line, and I'm really proud to be part of Imot B'Chazit, Mothers on the Front Line, because it started off dealing with the service, the refusal of the Orthodox Jews to serve in the army. But today it really encompasses, like Ayelet said, 360 degrees. And we're dealing with education and taking care of all the wounded and the wounded with PTSD and the wounded physically. Just all around, they're in the parliament and they're in the protests and they're in the courts and everywhere. They're an amazing, amazing group of women, and I'm really proud to be part of it.
This is incredible, and certainly we're going to talk more about this organization. And I think a big part of this conversation will also be, many of the people here who are joining us today, or who will be watching the recording, or from the United States, or from Europe, or from Australia. And they don't have the same knowledge on the ground as you do. So I think many people, including parents, including mothers, maybe the first question that I have for you is, how is it? Maybe share with those brothers and sisters of us who are Zionists, but they don't live in Israel, they don't raise their kids in Israel. How is it to have raised kids in the last 2 years, sending them to Gaza, knowing that you can't communicate with them, knowing that there's an active, scary, horrible war going on? How has it been for you, the 3 of you and other mothers that you know? I mean, I can't personally imagine this. I've started late, so I have 2 kids, 7 and 5. So, and I know that they are by far the most precious thing in the universe. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even, my life before and after the kids is different. So maybe share with us, how is it to be a mother in Israel while your kids are serving in Gaza before the ceasefire, but even now that the ceasefire, because we still hear that there is still activities in Gaza. So any of you can take the questions. We'll hear from all of you.
Yeah, I'm actually really good at putting up sort of an emotional barrier. Yeah, and it didn't really hit me until my son was in Gaza. He's serving in the Combat Engineering Corps, and in his mandatory service, he was actually up north, right on the border with Lebanon. I actually visited him a few weeks before the war, right on the wall. And I'm not hysterical by nature, and I didn't really give it much thought. And then the war broke out, and he actually spent the first couple of months back in the north. And then they told me they're moving down south, and that's when it really hit me. When he entered Gaza, he was 4 months fighting in Gaza. In his mandatory service, they take away their phones. I would send him a message on the WhatsApp and just wait for the day that second V would appear, so I would know that he has access to his phone, because it's like holding your breath. It's holding your breath day in, day out. I can tell one night, not many people know this. I don't really talk about this, but there was one night when I went to sleep and I woke up inexplicably, I don't know, from some noise. And I remember lying in bed and just holding my breath because I was sure it had been a knock on the door. And I was just lying there in bed thinking, no, 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 please, not again, not again. Just waiting to hear if there would be that other knock, because I was sure it had been a knock on the door that had woken me up. And that's the terrifying, like I said, day in, day out, as long as you know that they're in Gaza. It's terrifying. I don't know how else to describe it.
Maybe
You
you
just
can
wait
share
for that day that they get out and they can call you up and tell you, yeah, everything's fine.
just a clarification. I
be
mean, I know as an Israeli, but maybe when you're talking about the knock, the dreadful knock,
yeah,
maybe
the
not
knock on the
clear for
door.
all maybe explain a little bit, because it may not be clear what is the process.
They basically, you have special I don't know the word for it, like a special تفقيد,
Officers,
role,
role.
a special role,
Yeah.
yeah, in the army. People that come and inform you when your son, your daughter has fallen in combat. And they'll knock on the door. It's it's the knock on the door, and they come and they
Yeah.
tell you that your child fell in combat. I'm just talking about it.
The way they notice, they know you if your son or daughter is dead. To be an Israeli mother of a soldier is, I think, it means to live with two feelings at the same time. It's to be proud of your son or daughter that become a very responsible young man or woman, and all the big stuff that they are doing. And the other side, it's a fear. It's an endless fear. And in this situation, that the government, we don't trust this government. This is a government that we against these people in the government, and so it's make it even more difficult, because what country, which country, what if he fight from whom? I think we didn't sleep. I think one of us don't sleep the last 2 years, and it's difficult, very, very difficult to be that way. That's why we have this movement that's keep us alive.
The war
Yeah.
also
Part
started
of
as,
the
of course, just war. We all were for it. But it became, after a few months, a war that we felt is a political war. It's not really a war that's supposed to continue. And then it's very hard. You feel like actually betrayed. I mean, this government, while sending the same people over and over again and not doing the right roles, you say, decisions in getting to the end of the war in the best way. They're just continuing it, and at the same time, people that should be serving the ultra Orthodox, they're at the same time as continuing this war, they're working on a law for them to not serve at all, and for it to be in a law. And it's like, just you sometimes don't, it makes you a little like crazy about what's going on here, and how am I supposed to be behind what's going on and behind my kid. And also I didn't have a kid in Gaza, but a lot of my friends did, and they're also in a situation that you want your child to be very on it and not into what's going on in Israel. But at the same time, you know that he's being used in a very vicious way. And you feel very betrayed, very, very, very betrayed. Because the IDF is a place that we're the IDF, we're all the IDF. And when you feel betrayed, it's very hard. And the government is
That's the huge conflict
against the IDF.
Yeah, that's the huge conflict that we live with, because like I have three children serving in the IDF, and at the same time, I spent a huge part of this the past 2 years protesting the war, protesting actions done basically by the IDF at the instruction of the government. But on numerous occasions, we were down in Gaza on the border protesting to stop the war, and at the same time, I have children fighting in this war. So it leads to a lot of unpleasant Friday night dinner conversations with my children, I have to admit.
How do they respond to that, Michal? Because that's actually, there's already a question from the audience, is, somebody, an anonymous, the way that they phrase it is, how do you argue when people, and it could be even your children, say that the protests that you participate in when you go to Tel Aviv or other places against the government, against this war, they undermine the war effort, and people question perhaps your patriotism, but this is an impossible situation, because at the same time that you're doing this, you're sharing with Israel your flesh and blood, your 3 children who are actively going to the army. So this is how do your kids, for example, react these impossible conversations that you have over the weekends, over Shabbat dinner?
Yeah, that's it's very much tiptoeing on eggshells. It's a known thing that soldiers tend to go more to the right-wing opinions. I raised my children in a very liberal, chiloniya, not secular, regular, liberal, secular house, very much towards the left. And it's very difficult to see my children. My daughter is in a search and rescue unit, which is also combat, that for the most part, they're sitting in the West Bank. She sees a lot of things that I did not want her participating in and seeing, a lot of action there. And it's constant arguing, constant trying to convince them with facts, trying to pull them back more to the left, and we basically end up not discussing a lot of this because it does lead to arguments. It's really an impossible situation. It really is. And that, that's part of what infuriates me about this whole ultra-Orthodox con. It's a con because the truth of the matter is that we have a draft bill. We have a draft law. We have a draft law right now in Israel that everyone has to be drafted to the army. Okay, and when they say that there's no draft bill or there's no draft law, no, that's a con. There is one. They're not doing it. They're not enforcing it. And as a result of that,
let's say the reason we have one is because of our Supreme Court case. Because we won the Supreme Court case, that's why they have to do it now. That's why it's a duty for everybody now.
Right, but as of the 1st of July in 23, their exemption ended. and they were
Yeah,
supposed to
but
be drafted.
yeah,
And because they were not drafted, we suffer. My kids have to serve longer. I have a son, I have twins who were in the scouts throughout high school, and then they did a volunteer year. That's a very common thing here, especially among kids that finished finished in the scouts. They do a volunteer year in peripheral neighborhoods, in low-class neighborhoods. They give of themselves for a whole year. And my son was pulled out of that, in the middle of that, and drafted to a unit that he didn't even want to be drafted to. But that's what the Army needed at the moment, because you have tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox youth and young men that aren't drafted. So they do what they want with our kids, including extending. My older son finished his mandatory service and immediately the next day went into 4 months of reserve. Immediately. 4 months of reserve, no vacation, no nothing. And it was during the war with Lebanon. He was sitting on the Lebanese border. You know, I call him up. How are you? Is everything okay? Oh, yeah, fine. A missile just went overhead. But yeah, everything's fine. You know, that was the kind of conversation I would have with him for 4 months. I mean, it's really infuriating.
I think I want to get to that, but before we get to I actually have a few questions about this whole situation in Israel with the ultra-Orthodox who are not going to the army. But before that, going back to what you have created, the essence, the Mothers Organization. Maybe, I mean, you've shared a little bit the awful experiences that so many mothers have been, going through, knowing that their kids are in hell in Gaza, and it's just so terrifying. I can't even imagine. Maybe tell us a little bit about your efforts as the organization to support mothers within Israel who are mothers in need, who are feeling this, this nonstop, like one of you was talking about, that you basically didn't sleep for 2 years because you're always
Yeah.
terrified about your kids. You're terrified that
Well,
maybe
I
you'll hear
can
them
tell
knock.
you my personal experience. Ayelet Hsahahar will maybe expand on the whole the whole net that they give, the support net. But I had personal experience with that, in that on the 6th of October in 23, I actually had just landed in the States. And my son was supposed to have a vacation, a week-long vacation to stay with my youngest at home. And the next day, the war started. And I was stuck in the States. I had no way of getting back to Israel. And the first people that I called were mothers on the front line from the organization. I contacted Ayelet Hsahahar, and she got the network buzzing and going and working, to help me find a way to get back to Israel. Also, a few days ago, my son, now in his reserve duty, he's still in Gaza. Even though we have a ceasefire, he actually goes into Gaza, and it doesn't matter. But they do things at night. And I suddenly got a call from my daughter saying that something had happened in Gaza. There are soldiers that are injured. She doesn't know, but my son isn't answering his phone. And I tried reaching him. He wasn't online. I I had a really terrifying 2 hours. And the first person that I called was Ayelet Hsahahar, asking her to please find out what was going on, if everything was okay. And she did. I mean, it's the support that you get from these mothers is incredible. It really it helps you survive these 2 years.
Wow, it's like a hugging network nonstop.
Absolutely.
Sarit,
Absolutely.
Ayelet Hsahahar, maybe you can tell us more about what the organization has been doing to support mothers in need in this terrible last 2 years.
yeah. Sarit, you want?
I thought maybe you would tell them about all the organization of, the
We
Chosin.
build for mothers that living in fear. We build communication, small communication, in all over Israel, groups that supports one each other. And what Michal told us right now,
Community,
happens,
small community.
small communities, yes. איך אומרים חוסן?
Resilience, basically like
resilience.
WhatsApp.
Yeah, okay,
WhatsApp.
small community of resilience. Sorry, I didn't know this word, of resilience. We give them all what they need how to work with their sons that comes home from the war with PSD. It come different. What to do with when she is not sleep day after day after day after day. It was like 2 years of a war. We support mothers every day. We support soldiers of their rights in the IDF. We support the family. We support the wife if they have a wife. All the resilience of the small communities, that's what makes our movement a strong movement, because mother never goes along. We are always together, and that's what gives us the power to act every day, because to live in Israel right now, it's not a very nice experience, because we experience a lot of crazy stuff, like Sarit said, every day, every hour.
We're also
Everything is
in
happened.
the
Yeah.
parliament, in the Knesset,
Yeah, we are
different,
doing a lot of lobbying in the parliament, in the community of the Knesset. We lead a lot of rules for our child. We fight against everything that's going around there in the last 2 years, about money, about rights for our children, treatments for our children. We fight to stop the war. We fight to bring back everybody home. And we do it with protest on the street. We become a political force without to become a party, because we are in the parliament every day, every week. A lot of mothers. We fight on the court, and we are win on the court, and we fight also in the media. We go into the school to have lectures of equality and democracy. We want that Israel going to be a place, a fair and equal place that value everybody's life the same. That's what we want, as simple as that. And now we are not there. That's.
Thank you, Ayelet Hsahahar. Sarit, any comments on this?
I think I can add that we also are in a lot of different. We have like we go protesting in different places. We noamim.
We lecture and
Speak.
speak.
We lecture. We
Lecture,
speak.
yeah.
Yeah, for crowds of people, letting them know what's going on and what we're doing, and where they can come to, how they can come to be in touch with us and get help from us. It's an ongoing everyday situation. We're like working every day to get this place to heal back and to put it back in where it's supposed to be, with the right values.
Thank you for sharing all of this. This is very, I'm very proud of you. It's amazing what you're doing. I think this leads to the obvious, one of the topics of the conversation. There's several questions about this. I have several questions. And just to give, a friend of mine from medical school, I did my medical school in Jerusalem, is now the head of the cardiology unit at Ichilov. And he has been, I can't even, remember anymore how many hundreds of days he has been in reserves in Gaza nonstop. And he has a family, he has a job that he's, that he has to care for patients. And it's just the burden on his shoulders and his family's shoulders is just unbelievable. So with that, let's segue and maybe talk about the problem. And I know the issue because I've lived in Israel most of my life. My best friends, my family, everybody, my mother, my sister, everybody's in Israel. So I know, but let's take a step back first, because remember, a lot of the people who are watching this are Americans or Europeans or Australians, and they don't know the life, the exact, day-to-day life in Israel. So maybe try to think about it and frame it as if you're explaining the situation de novo from the beginning. What is exactly the issue? We know that in Israel there's, mixed communities, there's secular people, religious, Zionists, and then there's the ultra-Orthodox, huge communities, Many of them are in Jerusalem, Bnei Brak, other places. And maybe try to explain what is the issue. And I know that this is going to be maybe hard, but try to go into their heads or the leadership of the ultra-Orthodox. How do they see the situation? I'm trying to, as an American, or my fellow watchers right now, they're Americans as well. We were trying to understand, first of all, more objectively, like we know that the problem is that there's so many people who are just not going to the army. Help us understand a little bit more background in a holistic way as much as you can.
Okay, I can. את רוצה איילת? שחר?
Sorry, talk.
Well, it started back then when we were born, Israel was born, and Ben Gurion saw how it is important to have people also learning, and he gave like around 400 positions.
400.
Learning
Right,
Torah,
400,
learning Torah,
learning
Yeah.
not just
Torah, and
learning.
then right, and the others were drifted. They were serving in the army, the ultra-Orthodox. And what happened was when Begin, the 70s, when he
77.
77, he actually went with the Likud, wanted a government with the ultra-religious, and they had this deal that everybody is free from serving and they can just learn Torah. And then it became like this huge organization, and they became more and more, they grew, right? Their population grew.
Now we have like 150,000 Torah studies that not going to the army. It's basically the same like the army, the same people in the army we have in the yeshivot. It's very crazy.
And just say that they're not all learning. It became like as if this deal, a political deal, you get this, I get this, you give me this. It's not really something. Also, a lot of young ultra-Orthodox would like to be part of Israel, but they're as if their politics and their rabbis and their leaders want to be in control of all this, all of them, and make sure they do what they say. And I'm not saying they're not, for me, they're not participating and doing whatever they can, but I would say that I'm sure a lot of them would want to make a difference and serve and be part. But they're as if can't. And in the politics,
a huge part of the problem is that it became very political.
Exactly.
I mean, their demographics are such that they grew in a huge number, and there's no separation of state and religion in Israel, and they just formed parties that became very, very powerful. And it's the politics. It's basically the politics. And we made the mistake throughout the years, throughout the decades. We basically allowed this to happen, allowed them to get away with.
We don't allow it because we come to Supreme Court after 5 years, the first of the 80s. But the Supreme Court give the ultra-Orthodox time to get
Well, when I say we, I mean the country. The country allowed this to happen, and today we're in a situation that's very problematic. The 7th of October, as people like to say, it reshuffled the deck, the 7th of October, and now we have to.
I would say also that they turned us into different levels of people. Like there's the high level, and then we're the lower level, and the high level
like
do what they want,
and superior.
And yeah, they're superior.
The more you're religious, the more you are a saint.
This is as if this is the Jew
go to
that
the
you're
army
supposed
and
to be, and the Jew that is less should at least serve. So maybe through their serving the military and working, they give what they need to have for this the Jewish country, the Jewish state.
Well,
And what I'm
basically, again, they've just been allowed to get away with all of this because if you look at ultra-Orthodox overseas, okay, a lot of the things that they insist on and get here in Israel, they don't have there. I mean, you don't have such a division in their lives between the gender differentiation. I've seen ultra Orthodox overseas sitting on subway stations next to women with no problem. They go to work, they pay their taxes, they're
I'm
part
talking
of
only
the
in Israel.
communities in
What
that
I'm saying is
country.
right. The problem is in Israel, what I'm saying,
Yeah,
and it's
because we
getting
allowed them
worse.
to get away with it until now. We again, the country,
But it
the
was a lot
various
of
governments
politics.
over the years.
But it had all mostly to do with politics and control,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
But
and then
let me push the point. We'll continue this because I want to. This to me is interesting, and I think that a lot of the people who live outside of Israel may feel a little bit like myself. So I personally have been very involved in fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. The difference between the United States or anywhere else other than Israel is that in Israel, the community, there's the secular community, huge secular community like yourselves, liberal living in, and it's almost like isolated from any religion. But over here, it's different. There's the vast majority of the Jews are they connect. They are part of some sort of a religious community, congregation, synagogue, Reform, Orthodox, modern Orthodox, conservative. So as such, I have personally worked with so many different rabbis, and ultimately, I've been so impressed. The rabbis are good people. They want good for their community. They're Zionist people. They care about so many different things. For me, and maybe, I mean, I am a little bit more familiar with the situation, but many people could ask themselves in the United States, for example, how is it possible what you're describing? You're basically describing that all the religious leaders of they really feel that their blood is bluer than the rest of the non-Orthodox. Is this really the case that they see it?
Yeah.
They don't feel the need to protect Israel, and they don't
No.
care that the other people, the secular people, or the religious Zionist people are spending or risking every day for hundreds of days in the army, that mothers like yourself are basically sacrificing or risking the flesh of their children, and they really don't care.
No, they really don't care.
Their
They
claim is
really
that
don't care. Just a minute, Michal. They really don't care. Last week, in Tuesday, Thursday, I don't remember the day. Tuesday, they make it a million protest. Million of ultra-Orthodox get out on the street to say we die and we not serve because you are the enemy. So, and
Israel is the enemy. The state of Israel is the enemy.
is the enemy. The IDF is the enemy. The government is the enemy. The people is the enemy, and all of kind of Hasiduyot of the ultra-Orthodox was protest in this, was participate in this protest. So it's very no, they don't believe in Israel. They don't believe in the IDF, and they only want to take our money and to send our children to fight the war that they want to do. And
I'll say it's very, sorry.
No.
Okay.
Please.
It's very, very complicated. And I, as an American Jew, which went to a conservative synagogue every day. I went to the Hebrew Academy, which is a Jewish school, and was very and always proud of my Jewish values. And what's happening in Israel is what I can explain is that the secular you say, right, is actually how I understand it. We are as the American Jews are, the secular Jews here have the same values. We cherish the same I see it a very high level of values, which I feel that the Orthodox have lost the way. What is important for them is not the values that I was raised as a Jewish American. I don't see it over there. And it's very sad, and it's something that I understood only in the last 3 years, actually. I have a very big family with Orthodox, with all what you want, whatever, all the options in Israel. And we lived very happily and lovely. But about 4 years ago, or 5 actually are now, I was open. I was always, because I was raised in the U.S. and I have all this different kinds of Jewish sectors in my family. I always talked and was like as if the metavachat. How do you say? I would speak
You,
like
you compromise,
megasheret.
you negotiate, or I'm blanking on the word myself.
Right, and I was always thinking, I was always saying like we could all live together and it's really could happen. And then I understood that they see us as a lower level. If you see people at lower level, it can't work out together. It doesn't work because you use
And
them. Can.
Wow.
we did a lot of conversation with mothers, also the Orthodox mothers, and they actually said it straight and forward. Your son should go to the army and he can die. My son is a saint. My son is not going to go in anywhere. If you don't want to send your son, don't send your son. And when I ask, okay, and if the enemies come, so we need an army, we need a big army, we need to be strong because Israeli democracy and country need it. They don't care. They actually don't care. And this is a big conflict in Israel. And this is our main goal to bring the equality to this country.
Michal, any thoughts?
Michal, I hear your thought. I hear.
I know.
Yeah. Again, I think it's something that we sort of got ourselves into, and it's very, very complicated on how to get out of it. I've listened to so many podcasts and recordings and so forth, and they claim, for example, that the mothers especially are fearful that if their son goes into the army, he'll come out less religious. For example, that's one of the more common.
This is an excuse. It's not real.
Yeah, I'm saying that's one of the more common complaints. And yes, I also feel it's quite BS. Yeah, I I was telling Ayelet Hsahahar, that the army has bent over backwards to accommodate the ultra Orthodox, which I also find infuriating. Because, my son, never mind that they treat us like we're inferior, but when the army and the country treat my children like they're inferior, that's already a different matter. That's a problem. Because my son was pulled out of this volunteer year when he was going to be drafted anyways. He was pulled out of this volunteer year, thrown into a unit that he didn't want to serve in. Okay, he was forced to do that. They also extended the time that they have to do the mandatory service, and nobody formed a special unit for my son that's made out of I don't know, leftists that don't smoke and don't listen to Yad Golan. That's what I want for my son. Okay, so if I don't get that kind of unit, how come they make special units for the ultra-Orthodox to ensure their purity and their religion and so forth? And these special units, by the way, have no women. Yes, you're not allowed to have any contact with women. Okay, because I don't know why. That'll make it less religious, apparently. Okay, all kinds of laws and rules like that, which are ridiculous because the army is kosher anyways, and you have to deal with women on a day-to-day basis in your life anyways, and it's just like Ayelet said, it's a lot of excuses, and it's a problem. I think that the major problem is enforcement. I think there's not enough enforcement. There is a law. There is a standing law for the mandatory draft in Israel, and it's just not being enforced. And that already is a problem with this government. Okay, that already brings us to the problem with this government that's working day and night to satisfy and to coddle the ultra-Orthodox because of their political power, because they want this coalition to keep. That's the bottom line, really. Because
I
there
think
is a
that
law and it's just not being enforced.
just to jump into what you said, and this is relevant for Americans, for example, and it's important to recognize, and I'm not going at all into the politics right now, but the system, the political systems, for example, in the United States, is based on two parties. Period. End of story. So you have the Democrats and you have the Republicans. We just had an election here last week, and there was a lot of discussion in different states, governors, whatever. But it's really just for the vast majority, it's only two big parties. The situation in Israel, perhaps many years ago, it was true. There was Likud, Ma'arach, the two big forces, but that has been eroded. And so we don't have in Israel, for those who don't know,
there's a huge number of little parties, and you have to, in order to form a coalition, in order to form a government, you have to put them together like a jigsaw puzzle, and it really opens the door to a lot of bribes, basically. I mean, you have to satisfy, if you want this little itty-bitty party to join with you and not break up the coalition, then you give them what they want. That's really the bottom line. And you have every party has its demands and has to be satisfied.
So the question that I have is, I think in the last 15, 20 minutes, we have talked about this, and this is a problem. What I'm asking for you now is there any, like, from your perspective, what is the solution? Because some may say, well, this has been a problem forever. It's not only the current government, it's the political structure of Israel, of the multiple parties. And who is to say that even if the current government switches and another person comes in from another party and builds a coalition, how are we sure that we're going to be able to enforce this? I mean, you've all seen the Sharon Shafrir just mentioned that there was this million people demonstration, which was actually 250,000, and they were very aggressive about, that we don't want to be. But if they absolutely say no, and they still have the political power, and they're backed up by their leadership, what is the solution that you're hoping for without fracture of the society, without the society, because they are part of the society of the country?
No, they're not part of the society. Society is already.
I think the solution has to be enforcement. It has to be enforcement, and we're not going to get it under this government.
No, we are going to get it, because we are go back to the Supreme Court to ask the enforcing. The only way is enforcing, because that's the only way we go to the army. That's the only way, and the only reason that people go to the army, because somebody forced them. Because if you're not going to the army, you're going to jail. You cannot go out from the country. You don't have any money from the government. You cannot be a government worker. You have a lot of punishment. So this is the only way. This is the only way that they never did to this ultra-Orthodox. They never forced them.
Yeah, I mean, contrary to their beliefs,
they do the opposite thing. They give them a lot of rights that we don't have.
Contrary to their beliefs, nobody asked my children, "Do you feel like serving?" I mean, I don't think it was my son's. I don't think it was my son's big dream to sit for 3 straight weeks in a little tiny puma, not showering and eating out of cans and in the middle of Gaza. I don't think that was his dream. Okay, so nobody asked him. It's something that from the moment you give birth to a child in Israel, they will be serving in the army. And if for whatever reason, medical or whatever, there's a real reason for them to be unable to serve, then they do a civil service of 2 years, where also they're under the same kind of a framework as in the army. There are rules to it, and they have to do this service. And even that the ultra-Orthodox don't do. So it's really, I mean,
they don't have any choice.
I want to add that the IDF needs soldiers. It's not like even equality anymore. It has to do with the need to protect Israel.
They don't have any choice.
So first of all, we need to protect Israel. We need to protect Israel with the IDF. So we need soldiers to be in the IDF. And then we need the IDF to be professional. We need it for it to be moral. We need it for it to be wise. And one of the things that this government is also doing is like steering our country into making people ignorant and making people only believing in a miracle, making them less professional because they're like, oh, God will save us. And this is also another issue that needs to be solved. And I feel that this government is not going to solve it. All they want is to be in control. And
Sarit, I just want to 1 second just explain because you were saying something that I'm not sure that everyone would understand. Another problem with the ultra-Orthodox is that their studies don't include basic studies of English and math and science and things like that. So they are unable to join the workforce. They're unable to basically be part of the culture and the country and so forth. And that's another part of the problem that we have to address with the ultra-Orthodox. And that's
I
what
want
you
to
meant,
say
I think, when you were
something.
saying about them being ignorant in that they're
right, but
unable,
I'm
they
saying
basically know only Torah.
it's not only the ultra. The government wants us also to be ignorant. Also, our kids
Yeah,
also
that's for
in
the
our
future.
school. Yes, our
Yeah,
education
but I want
is
to say
getting.
something important
Yes.
because since we, the mothers on the front line, begin our struggle, more ultra-Orthodox men have joined to the army since ever. So our struggle is work.
Good.
It's not all of them, but I think it's more than ever. We have 3,000 men ultra-Orthodox that joined to the army this year. It's never happened before. So I think we do both. We go from small steps, grassroots. We work with the people that want to join to be part of the Israeli society. We fight against the rabbis and parties members that don't want that the people of the Orthodox to be part of the Israeli society, because it's a lot of money. It's actually everything begin and start with money. So what we did the last 2 years is to take all the money, and then they come to the army.
So this is amazing. Just to,
but that's the enforcing that we were talking about.
Yeah, that's the enforcing. Yeah, and I'm sorry for my English. My Hebrew it's actually better.
I have to be mindful. 1 second. I have to be mindful of the time. And there's one more question. Actually, 3 different people asked the same question. But before the question, I'm just going to read a couple of comments. Anita Rudolph from Canada. She says that my son was a Chayal Boded and is now a reservist. That's really, really, really hard to be so far away from him and his family, given everything that's happening. I wish I could be there with all of you, with my love and my support. Kol hakavod to all of you for what you're doing. May our children be safe. So that's one comment.
But Anita, we have a community for mothers are lonely mothers. We call them lonely mothers because if you have a lonely soldiers, you have a lonely mother. So Anita talks with us. We have mothers like you, even in Canada. You are not alone.
Email us, and then there's another comment from
text us.
We'll make the connection. Another comment from Ann Hansen to all the panelists, to everybody. I have 2 sons who were called up with the reserves in Gaza, October 7th. As one of my sons said, I arrived when the puddles of blood were still steaming. Both kids were only recently released. One of them was just last week. And she was basically mentioning what she's concerned about the Orthodox. She also mentions Ayelet Hsahahar. I lived for many years in the Hula Valley, and she loves your name. And then the final question, and then we're going to finish, and perhaps maybe just a very brief question is, what do you think that the diaspora Jews should support in public? What do you think that we should be doing with our voices, our agreement or disagreement? What can we do, and can it be meaningful for the Israel internal affairs? And with that, I think I don't know, Giovanni, and if we have 2 more minutes to answer, or do I need to, she's texting me.
Fine.
Yeah, it's okay to continue. So
should I risk getting into politics here?
Yeah, answer. You speak English very fast. Answer, please.
Michal, you're up.
I should risk getting into politics here. Look, the bottom line is we have a problem with this government. Okay, this government is feeding into to everything that's been happening with the ultra-Orthodox for all these decades. And October 7th should have changed that, because there was a misconception that our army has enough soldiers and that we're strong enough. And that was blown to smithereens on October 7th, as we all know. And as of now, the army is missing, if I'm not mistaken, something like 12,000 soldiers. And like I said, this government
20.
is working day and night on everything but drafting the ultra-Orthodox. Okay? And
So what they want?
and really we have to get rid of them. We have to get rid of this government in order to be able to be a more liberal, a more democratic country. Right now we have a lot of messianic, fascist, right-wing people in the government, and they're calling the shots, and they're leading the country, and they're leading also the army to places that we don't want to go. That it's dangerous for us to go, and it's destructive for us to go in that direction. And as mothers with children in the army, I can speak for myself. It really scares me to think where the army is heading under their direction, under their so-called leadership, if you want to call it. So we really have to get rid of this government if we want to have more liberal and democratic voices.
I wanna add that they're harming the values of the Jewish nation, Jewish
Absolutely.
people. And I want to say that we as seculars, we are actually living these values. And I would love the Americans and whoever, Jews everywhere, it's really hard to understand, it's very complicated. But actually, we are the ones that are living it and doing it, and not, we are protecting these values. The Tikkun Olam, we're doing it. Equality, we're doing it. Human dignity, importance of relationship, the responsibility for one another, we're doing it. And it's very hard to understand because we don't need to go to the synagogue, which in the US as a family, we did go to the synagogue. We loved going to the synagogue. Here, the synagogues look differently. They're not it's the opposite of what's going on in the American synagogues. And again, I'll want to ladgish, to emphasize that if we don't protect these values, there's not going to be Israel.
Yeah.
It's ad kedei kach. It's
This is like last thoughts.
I want to ask from the audience to join us to look of what we're doing, to join us to the matter of the front line and to help us to keep Israel Jewish and Democrat, because it's really difficult right now because it's a big force that work against us. So the only thing I want
the people.
is you to join us, everybody, and help us in every way you have.
Well, thank you.
I wanted, if I can just one last sentence, I think it's also really important to make a differentiation between us as a country and our government right now, because I think that the Jews in the diaspora are getting a lot of hate and a lot of anti-Semitism for being Jewish, or Israelis living abroad for being Israeli, and it's really unfair because it's not Israel that's the problem, and it's not Judaism that's the problem. Okay, they're not responsible for any bad choices that were made under this leadership. I mean, the attack that we got on October 7th, it should not have led to this kind of anti-Semitism and hatred against us. Okay, if we had responsible, democratic, liberal leadership, we could have, I don't know, harnessed the support that we did have at first from all the countries, and I don't think we would have reached the point where we are right now. And I hear on social media, I see a lot of Jews and Israelis that are really coming out against Israel. And again, I think it's really important to differentiate between Israel and the people who are amazing, really amazing people here, people that have been protesting for years, and specifically for the last 2 years, to stop the war, to return the hostages, to have a more democratic, liberal Jewish country, and to differentiate between us and this government.
And our government and our prime minister.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I mean, this last point can be argued. Some would argue, and I'm not going to go into it because some would argue that what is happening now is the new wave of anti-Semitism is just it's anti-Semitism that was always there. This time it manifests as hate to Israel. I'm not sure that it's all because of the government. I think it's a combination of factors. But regardless, I think that this has been an enlightening session, and thank you for your courage, for all that you have been doing and you're still doing. And thank you, Aid Coalition, for hosting this very powerful event. I'd love to continue staying in touch with you and learning about more and collaborating with you in the future. And toda mostly to all of you people who have joined us from all over the world. And I wish you all a good Shavua Tov remaining of the week. תודה רבה לכולם שהצטרפו.
תודה רבה לכולם,
Bye. Thank you
שבוע
very
טוב.
much.
Thank you.
תודה.
ביי, להתראות.
Bye.